Raymond, two 49er players with vastly different styles of careers have retired this week. On one hand, you have Jordan Reed. On the other hand, you have Alex Smith. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put each player's impact to this franchise?
I would put Alex at a solid 10 for helping engineer a 3-year NFC Championship run. And I would put Jordan Reed at what I believe is a fair 0.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! All right, Raymond. You know, a lot of times we're looking at where our teams are going. We are looking at the games they have recently played, the games they're about to play. But every now and then there's an episode where we take a look back at something that has happened way in the past, or we take a look at a player that has greatly impacted this franchise at one point or another, and we take a look at them. And today, that day is dedicated for our boy, Alex Smith, a player that you and I have defended many times, a player that you and I have respected, a player that I think really, despite all of the adversity and the things he had to overcome, did a really great job of meeting and exceeding the obstacles put in front of him, and no case in point better than probably the breaking of his leg and his subsequent return last season to the Washington football team. So, Raymond, Alex Smith officially announced his retirement on Instagram. He had a very moving video. It was pretty awesome. Showed highlights from all three teams, from the Niners, from the Chiefs, from the Washington football team. Across the league, analysts and players alike have come out in support of this decision and just in support of just what a tough fighter Alex Smith was and will, I'm sure, continue to be even in his post-career. I look forward to what he does. It'd be great to see maybe he gets into something like some sort of media stuff where he's talking about the Niners or talking about football. It'd be great to hear what he has to say. I'm sure he's a really bright guy. And so, Raymond, I want to start with you first. What are your thoughts on Alex Smith announcing his retirement?
Well, it's a little bittersweet, because I think like a lot of Niner fans, I can't speak for all of them, but I think a lot of us have always been wondering, what would have happened in the 2012 season had Alex Smith been allowed to kind of continue his trajectory once he came back from injury? He obviously went down with a concussion, and we were 6-2 at the time, but we obviously saw that the offense seemed to open up a bit more with Colin Kaepernick. And although Colin Kaepernick made a valiant effort in the Super Bowl to almost winning it, you just can't help but wonder, if Alex Smith was there, would he have been able to kind of give us over that one little hump that we couldn't get over to secure the victory in that contest? But, that's neither here nor there. I think probably one of the most consummate pros I've ever known in terms of just having to deal with so much BS his whole career, just never really getting a fair shot until, I think 5 or 6 years into his career is when he finally got a decent shot between 2011 and 2013. He got a good run with Jim Harbaugh and that squad and was able to kind of showcase, a much better developed skill set, the skill set that we all kind of hoped that we were going to get out of him when we drafted him in 2005. Even though he never became the Aaron Rodgers, he still showed that he was capable of leading a team and winning. He went to 3 Pro Bowls in his career, including one when he was a Niner, and the other 2 was when he was in Kansas City. And that, this guy ended up having a great career, made a lot of good money, earned his money, and never, the biggest thing, the biggest compliment as I can give him is, despite all the shit that he dealt with in terms of just going through 6 different offensive coordinators, which is never a recipe for prolonged success in the NFL, kept his mouth shut and his head down, never bitched, and, is gonna ride out on top in my book.
That's a great way to put it. He does ride out on top. This is a guy that, like you said, really, really, Alex Smith has always shown that he was more than capable of not just being a good or decent football player, but capable of leading a team to very high levels of success. NFC Championship. Kyle Williams doesn't just, arguably make the two worst special teams plays ever performed in the history of the San Francisco 49ers, and he probably leads that team to the Super Bowl. Now, whether or not they beat the New England Patriots, who knows? Again, I think that the outside of showing that he's more than capable of leading teams to great heights when he has the right system around him, which not all quarterbacks are capable of doing. But not only that, there's always, like you mentioned at the beginning of your statement, there's always going to be a lot of what ifs that surround Alex Smith's career, right? What if he had a proper system there the day he was drafted? What if he went to Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers would come to San Francisco? What if Kyle Williams doesn't mess up those plays in 2011? What if they stick with him and they stick with him through the regular season and into the post? Do we still defeat Green Bay? Maybe not at the scorching level that we did with Colin Kaepernick, but do we still get to that Super Bowl in 2012? There are a lot of big questions of what ifs, but the great part is of the body of work that we do have. When he's in the right system, when he's with Harbaugh, when he's with Andy Reid, when he's in the big moment, and of course I'm gonna get right to it. When he's in the middle of playing the New Orleans Saints, the catch three, when he's in those moments, Alex Smith has shown he's more than capable of staying cool as ice and leading a team to victory. He was never the most prolific passer. Really struggled to get over 300 yards, really struggled on third down conversion, which was a major problem with the 49ers and the Chiefs. I would say maybe those are probably the two things that seem to really set him back from taking it to the next level. But what he did have was a level of intangibles that were really, really hard to quantify. He just knew how to win. He knew how to win, and he knew how to win under the bright lights in the big moments. And he knew how to pull things off when the team asked him to do it. And he proved this both in San Francisco, Kansas City, and Washington. And of course, what more can be said than about the broken leg? The broken leg comeback, he had to get, it was 18 surgeries to repair his leg. He thought he was never going to walk again. He almost died. They thought he was going to have to amputate his leg. And he talks about it in the video, which I thought was very fascinating, how he talks about how they were really struggling to really, break ground on his rehab. And it wasn't until the rehab specialist put a football in his hand and made him use the football during the rehab that it all started to work again, right? It was the muscle memory, the body, the desire, the love for the sport. And it's what really helped bring him back. Brilliant move by the rehab people. Brilliant move by those specialists. That's probably why those people get paid millions of top dollars to do these kinds of rehabilitations. But it also just goes to show you that not only did Alex Smith, not only was he willing to overcome adversity, he was willing to overcome the greatest of adversity. And I think that is the superpower that Alex Smith has shown his entire career. His ability to overcome the greatest levels of adversity. It really is. Raymond, take me back. Let's talk a little bit about the catch three, the game that you and I both agree is probably the greatest game Alex Smith ever played. Definitely as a 49er. Maybe Chiefs fans feel different, and maybe Washington fans. Maybe you could say the first game he started back last year might be the greatest game that he's ever played. I saw that on a couple lists today of greatest Alex Smith games. That was listed pretty high, too, as coming back from that injury and playing. But Raymond, your thoughts on the catch three?
Well, it's my favorite game of his career because it was Niners got backed into the playoffs, new coaching regime, more or less the same talent that we had drafted through Scott McCloughan's great mind when he was sober anyways. And, we're able to finally put it together under Harbaugh, albeit in his kind of weird way that he likes to coach football teams. It seems to always get him, in and out within a 3 or 4 year window. And it was just great because Alex Smith, I think, was ready for the challenge from the moment, we got to the playoffs. And despite having to face a New Orleans Saints team where Drew Brees was only a few years removed from a Super Bowl championship, and he was at the height of his powers, and handedly defeating him, one of the most accurate the most accurate power statistically in NFL history in a Drew Brees, and he threw 5 touchdowns of his own, 0 interceptions. He's actually 14-2 in terms of touchdown interception ratios throughout his entire playoff appearances. So he was very efficient in the postseason. Didn't have the wins to necessarily reflect that, but that's not necessarily on him. That's a combination of defensive woes and bad offensive lines. Kansas City is notorious for having terrible offensive lines. He got sacked 45 times back-to-back seasons on those teams. But again, that's a different podcast. But the 2011 divisional playoff round was just absolutely a showstopper. It's actually kind of a pretty average game for the most part. And then in the fourth quarter, when him and Drew Brees just really started to go toe-to-toe, and the defenses were just gassed and couldn't stop either of us, whether it was us with the ball or New Orleans with the ball, Alex Smith answered the call and had his, Joe Montana / Steve Young moment, where, he was able to etch himself into permanent 49ers lore by, making a big-time throw and getting a big-time score in a big-time game. And you only become a 49ers legend when you're able to do something like that, and he was able to do it. So not an easy thing to do, and the fact that you even get mentioned in the same breath as a Joe Montana and Steve Young because you were able to accomplish something similar in a big-time game, I think just speaks volumes to what his career was. Despite, having the early hurdles to overcome, he was able to sustain himself and keep the course and have some big moments that us as fans are never going to forget.
I like how you describe that, and I think you might have just coined a new term right here in real time on the GoldCast, the Montana moment. If you really want to be etched in history, you have to have your Montana moment. You have to have your great comeback. You have to have your win in the final seconds. Like, having a Montana moment is very difficult, and we only can think of 2 other quarterbacks that have had it. Cap is different. Cap never quite. Did Cap have a great comeback? I don't. Cap just destroyed teams. He just ripped teams in half for like 2 seasons. His Montana moment was just steroids. Was just ripping teams apart like he's Brock Lesnar in a wrestling match.
I don't know if he doesn't quite meet the criteria, because the catch was, the game's on the line, you're down, it's a playoff game, it's do or die, it's not regular season where you get to go to next Sunday, and Montana made the throw of his career. Steve Young had a similar thing. It wasn't the 94 season, but it was the 98 season, and it was a playoff game as well, and, game was on the line, waning seconds, have to score or
you lose. The catch two, right?
The catch two. And Alex Smith was in the exact same moment. Very similar. Alex Smith and Steve Young's, both their catches are much more similar than Joe Montana's. It's crazy how similar those 2 catches are. And, the fact that they were also made by, emotional players. Vernon Davis cried as he ran back to the sideline, just as T.O. cried as he ran back to the sideline. The ghost of 49ers past was channeling, Candlestick Park that day against the Saints. And it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome moment. So yeah, Cap has his own little moments that get permanent status, like decimating Green Bay in the playoff games with his legs and his arm. Is pretty awesome. But as far as having that if he'd have got the throw to Crabtree in 2012, that would have been his Montana moment, without a doubt.
Yeah, that would have been his Montana moment. And, to be honest, I don't ever really like to be in positions where we need a Montana moment. I just want to win comfortably by 14 points.
Yes, I'd rather have the blowout than to be on pins and needles waiting for a catch 3 or 4. Because guess what? There's only 3 catches, and there's decades of Niners football. So the likelihood of that bailing you out is pretty slim.
Absolutely. You're totally right. You're totally right. But Alex Smith, he has his Montana moment. Congratulations to him, and we definitely look forward to seeing what you do in your post-retirement career. All right, Raymond, let's move on. We talked about this a couple days ago, that our Giants are rolling.
What's that? What's that, Bryce Harper? Oh, you lost. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe bitch to somebody else that cares.
They rolling. Once again, Raymond. Okay, we have a tough time in Miami. We go down 2. We win that one in a classic 1-0 a showing from the Giants, and then go back to back here with Philly and take 2 in a row, to go 2 in a row to now win 3 total. We have one more game, and then we got to go back to Miami and play 3 or 4 more games against Miami. So it'll be good to test, see if we can get some revenge going back into Miami. But game 2 against the Phillies starts off pretty bleak. You know, they're up 4-0. We've scored nothing through the first 4 innings. 5th inning comes around. We finally put 3 on the board. They put 2 more on the board. Now it's 6-3. 6th inning, we put 1 up. 7th, shutout for both teams. And the 8th is when this really breaks open. 2 3-run homers to put this game completely to bed. We get a quick scare in the 9th. Jake McGee allows a home run, which the play right before the foul ball before almost caught by Yastrzemski. It was right there. He's leaning over, but his glove kind of hits the chair. The ball bounces out, and immediately next play, boom, home run for the Phillies. Now it's like, okay, 7-10. Giants still winning. Are we going to pull this out? Bryce Harper comes up. Bryce Harper does Bryce Harper things when he's going against a Giants team that's good. Jake McGee puts him to bed. Boom, boom, boom. You know, and it's a wrap. We're now up 2-0. We've won 3 in a row since the series with Miami, and we are still looking good. We're sitting here now at 11-6. We are holding on strong to that second spot. Padres coming back. Padres trying really hard to overtake us. But right now, the Giants look fantastic. Raymond, give me your reactions to this nice 3-run stretch we've had. Once again, Giants putting together a series of wins to continue to stay at second place in the NL West.
They've literally won 10 out of the last 14 games, which is fantastic. And the offense finally woke up tonight, which is another big one. I know Dickerson had the big 3-run bomb to put him ahead 7-6, and they never looked back. So that was nice to see. Posey also went yard 2 times in this game as well. So we've all been waiting for this to happen because it's just been Longoria and Solano really kind of doing a lot of the dirty work in terms of offense. And then you have little contributions, albeit inconsistent. You know, Crawford had his moment during the homestand and then has gone cold, was cold before that and is cold now. But, you know, to have everyone kind of finally wake up, get a comeback win, you know, this was a little bit more decisive, even though it was, you know, within 3 runs, which is a closing situation technically. It was still nice for them to kind of put together a more collective offensive showing than we've seen thus far this year, where it's just typical Giants baseball. A lot of these 1-run games, they're winning these games. They're winning more of them often than they're losing them. But you just want to see a little bit more convincing wins. I know with the Rockies it was 4-0. That was a little bit more convincing. The Reds was 3-0. But those are technically, you know, those are not too far removed in terms of, you know, comeback ability in baseball. You know, I want to see the 7-1, the 10-1, those weird 16-4 games that happen every year in baseball. Somebody always falls victim to that. You know, I just want to see a little bit more of that. So the 10-7 is a nice, good start. You know, we'll see if they can pick that up and take it into the next series. I hope so, because I think this series is going to be pretty darn good. I mean, obviously we have one more to go with the Phillies, but let's see if they can get the sweep, because that would be sweet. It's always good to see Bryce Harper get a sweep or get swept. And, you know, the Phillies, those are our heated rivals from back in the day, not quite the same team that we beat up in 2010 and during the World Series championship seasons. But still, I don't know about you, but still kind of nice to see the Phillies go down at the hands of the Giants.
It really is. And having Bryce Harper on that team, you know, he could never get over the Giants hump and tried very, very hard. I will say, to his credit, he was one of the few players on a couple of those big games that actually balled out and felt like he really wanted to win. Couldn't always say that about the rest of those national teams. Sometimes it felt like they all just kind of wanted to lay down and die. But having said that, great to see, great to get a nice little win over an old school rival. And do you remember the fight? I think it was in 2011, that big crazy brawl on the field right here in San Francisco with Giants and Phillies. That was awesome. And I was kind of, I mean, not, you know what I mean. And so it was awesome for its, controversialness and its craziness. But I was kind of hoping that was the start of something really big, and ended up not being. We went on a dynasty, and bye-bye Phillies. So, end of story.
Yes.
All right. We will be back later on this week, Thursday. Lots to talk about. Warriors. Chef Curry is still cooking and has been.
New record.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it on Thursday. Raymond, there's MVP talk. A lot of it coming. I said this all the way back in week 2, man. I said this back in week 2. I called this a long time ago, and we're going to talk a lot about the Warriors and Curry on Thursday. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.